If anyone has earned the right to criticize the New York Times, it's me. Strike that. If anyone has earned the right to decimate, demolish, devastate, eviscerate, obliterate, pulverize, and/or shred the New York Times, that would be me. Remember my emails? On the brink of a pivotal presidential election, the Times unleashed a veritable deluge of coverage on my use of a private server when I served as Secretary of State. Their fixation ran so deep, I guess they thought they'd find the secret formula to get people to actually pay for news again hidden in my inbox. This obsession for a story that ultimately ended up a complete nothing burger spanned more front-page articles in 6 days than all discussions of other policy issues combined over the preceding 2.5 months. Yet, did you know that a decade earlier, President George W. Bush enlisted the Republican National Committee to run the White House email server, and they somehow lost 22 million emails, including everything related to the run-up to the disastrous war in Iraq? Don't believe me? Google it. While you do, don't kid yourself into thinking this was a simple misstep. The sad truth is the New York Times has a long and storied tradition of undermining the very democracy it purports to serve. I don't say that just because the Times may have tipped the 2016 election to Donald Trump, who they didn't scrutinize until after he took office. I say it because the New York Times, whenever it has faced the storm of global chaos or schemes of power-hungry autocrats, has consistently fought against the interests of the American people. The problem is the Times' insistence on false equivalency, which is a staple of so-called objective journalism. Objectivity means reporting the facts as they are without bias or allowing personal feelings to influence your story. I suppose this sounds good in theory, but in a world rife with complexities and inherent biases, can true objectivity ever be attained? And why is the Times obsessed with objectivity in the first place? Why not, say, attempt to achieve fundamental fairness or seek truth? Why does the Times cling to a concept that, in its execution, often morphs into a vehicle for false equivalency, thereby distorting the very essence of truth it seeks to uphold? Also, riddle me this. The Times' famous tagline is all the news that's fit to print, but this tagline is itself an editorial decision. It completely contradicts the Times' stated mission. To decide what's fit to print requires making a judgment call. In essence, the newspaper has been living a lie almost its entire existence. This lie has helped shape the Times' place in history. It has led them to distort critical moments in history with their misguided commitment to presenting both sides. But by trying to play it down the middle, they can find themselves on the wrong side. Take Japanese internment, a shameful policy in our history. When the American government forcibly moved more than 100,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps, the New York Times referred to the occasion as Japanese Moving Day. In other coverage, Times reporters complained that internees were being coddled and said they were among the best-fed civilians in the world. If you want to shock yourself, compare New York Times coverage of the Japanese internment to Nazi German newspaper coverage of Kristallnacht, a night when Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues were attacked, looted, and destroyed across Nazi Germany. They're disturbingly similar. As a newspaper, you know you've gone down the wrong path when your coverage can be compared to the Nazis. False equivalency permeates New York Times coverage of virtually every major issue we face as a society. It affects climate change, with Times editors giving undue space to climate change skeptics, creating an impression of significant scientific debate where there is overwhelming consensus among scientists about human-caused global warming. It describes the Times' political coverage, which is characterized by a horse race mentality. Who is up in the polls, who is down, but not what impact their policies would have on everyday Americans. False equivalency plagues New York Times discussions of healthcare, education, the environment, the tech industry, tax policy, Congress, and the Middle East. In its pursuit to appear balanced, the Times has inadvertently muffled the voices of reason and expertise, equating them with the cacophony of falsehoods and partisanship. This false balance doesn't enlighten, it confuses. It doesn't inform, it obscures. It doesn't protect democracy, it imperils it by sowing doubt where there should be certainty, by promoting skepticism where there should be trust, and by elevating controversy where there should be clarity. This journalistic malpractice has transformed critical discourse into a battlefield where facts are optional and every viewpoint, no matter how unfounded, is given a platform. The goal shouldn't be to split the difference between truth and falsehood, but to vigorously pursue and spotlight the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable. The measure of a newspaper's greatness isn't found in its ability to give equal weight to all sides, but in its courage to stand firm on the side of verifiable facts and informed analysis. In an era where truth is under siege, the New York Times should consider revising its tagline. How about truth over equivocation, championing democracy one story at a time? It might not be as catchy as all the news that's fit to print, but it isn't a threat to democracy either.